Next presentation, our first highlight here on the stage from Atte Länsisalmi from Nokia is dealing with the campus network. It's a white paper. The 5G Asia will publish or is already publishing. I don't know, he will tell us. But it's not the first white paper on the topic of campus networks or private networks. What is the difference? Atte will tell us, but I already asked him. He will delve a bit more into use cases. It's a bit more use case oriented. And so I'm very happy to have him here. Atte, please come to me on stage and show us one of the many resources of 5G Asia. You can find it on the 5G Asia website. I'm sure you will tell, but you focus on the 5G NPN non-public networks in this white paper. Thank you very much for bringing the insights to the stage, and the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the presentation. Welcome to also those who are following us via the video recording. So, as said, my name is Atte Länsisalmi. I'm representing Nokia, but today, actually, I'm taking my 5G ACIA hat. I'm working group 3 chairman in that organization. That working group is responsible for system architecture and integration aspects. And as said, we have just recently published this white paper. But I want to still highlight the role of 5G ACIA here. So it was introduced to you just a moment ago, if you were here present. But I want to highlight that this is an alliance between the industries. So it's not only ICT, not only OT. Those are the key member groups, but we also incorporate academia and a new member group for the end users. And this white paper here in particular, it was a joint operation between the member organizations. And this is sort of a second version of the non-public network or private network or private wireless document in 5G ACIA. This time around, we took an approach where we really concentrated on the use cases, and that was the starting point. And as you see on the slide, and you heard me already go through the different versions of the terminology, that's something important to highlight because we use terms interchangeably. So when we're talking about 5G, the term that you often use is non-public network or NPN. So that's more or less specific to 5G, and that was a term coined by 3GPP, that is the organization responsible for defining the standard. But as said, we also know this technology simply by names private networks, or I think in German, campus networks, but also private wireless. So in general, that all means the same thing. So this will be just a very brief presentation on some of the new things and findings in this white paper. We will also hold a web seminar on this later this year, and we will go through the topic in detail. So stay tuned for that. And we will also have a video available of this presentation later, as well as the web seminar. So those are available resources to you in addition to the white paper itself, which you can pick up as a hard copy from the 5G ACIA booth or from the website. So it has been published already a few weeks back. So finally, into the contents of the white paper. So as I said, we started from the real use cases. We did not start from whatever various companies are using in their offering or from the standards. Because really, when you start to consider private wireless for your enterprise, you need to start from the use cases and understand what the requirements from those are. So we talked to our OT member companies and asked them to introduce some scenarios that would be very typical for this industrial automation or industrial segment altogether. And we created 3 different scenarios, and you see two of the prime scenarios here on this slide. So on left you see a manufacturing building or a factory, and on the right you see a process industry facility or plant, so basically an oil refinery. So this is what we started or used as a starting point for defining these NPN scenarios. And I mentioned we had a 3rd scenario as well, and we call that industrial park or industrial campus, where we would have several industrial enterprises of either type in the same area or district, and they would be using same common facilities, and they could perhaps be using the same industrial 5G network as well. So that was the interesting point from our perspective. So the use cases then, we have some typical use cases depicted on this slide. So you see things like AGVs, cobots, connected workers, mobile HMI, and things of that sort. Very basic use cases, and this is what mostly comes up when we come to creating a wireless solution for these enterprises. So there are a couple of things to note. So these use cases, they are local to each one of these sites. So the OT companies did not raise any use cases which would involve different industrial facilities in, let's say, different parts of a country or in different countries. So these use cases are all local. Also, the use cases, while they certainly require a private network, you cannot serve these with public network, they do require pretty good quality of service. So they require low latencies and high reliability, but maybe not ultra low latencies and ultra high reliability. Okay, so this was the starting point, and then we started to develop the private network solutions on top of them. And the starting point, most obviously, for any one of these facilities would be the industrial network in the site. So here, sort of on the bottom layer of this figure, you see a typical industrial network setup. It's just an example of a manufacturing building or a factory. And currently, many of these connections are wired, or most of them are wired. And then we overlaid the 5G connections with these orange arrows. So they just indicate logically where 5G communication would be needed. So the end result obviously would be a combination of wired and wireless connections. So the 5G communication, it needs to integrate to the industrial network. So it's a combined network. And you would be using 5G only in places where it makes sense. So that's clear. So we then move on. How do we realize these industrial connections with 5G? And looking at the use cases and the local nature of the 5G communication, we realized that, yes, we need a local 5G network. And this network design is shown here. We have raised the level of abstraction a little bit, but the bottom layer on the figure is still the different domains of the industrial network. Then in this light blue color, you see elements of the 5G communication network. So in the document, we use this terminology, local NPN, to indicate a private network, private wireless network that is deployed locally on the site, so that those network elements that are responsible for the 5G communication itself really are on the premises. We recognize that there are also use cases, or in some conditions, it is possible to serve these use cases so that the NBN would only be partially locally. So meaning some of those communication elements, specifically the core network part of the NBN, could be in the public cloud or in another operator's network. But in the white paper, we do not focus on that, because really this type of deployment that we show here is the one that our members preferred. And actually, in this network example, you see two different instances of the NBN, one on the bottom left and another one on the sort of center of the figure. So you can have several instances of the network elements and still being part of the same NBN. Let me stay on this slide for one more second. So this is pretty simple so far. I think most everybody would have been looking at something like this to begin with. And if you go and search for solutions, there are many, many providers of NBNs already in the market today. Every vendor tends to say that their solution is the best for this type and this type of deployment, and maybe they even go as far as saying that some other deployments will not deliver at all and would not be suitable for this case. But in the document, we obviously wanted to include all solutions available or address all solutions, not so that we are pointing to them specifically, but to not be exclusive to certain type of products. So we decided that, because the question is, which NBN solutions then would fulfill this type of deployment? So we started listing some additional considerations, things that companies that would be deploying an NBN should think about when they evaluate the different solutions. So the number one thing is that please do go ask around. There are many different types of NBN solutions already in the market, and then do an analysis, what solution fits your needs the best. So next I will go through some of these considerations that you should take into account, and these are just on high level again. So one thing is domain separation. So in the industrial networks, there are different domains. I think we all know that, and those domains, they are separated from each other. There can even be a little bit more complicated case than that, and the figure here on the left, it shows this industrial park scenario. So remember, I was saying that in that scenario, we could have several enterprises that are using the same 5G network. So here we are depicting 4 enterprises. They're listed in the bottom. There is OTA, B, C, and D, and they would be using the same NBN, 5G NBN, but their networks would be separated from each other. So on the left side of this figure, there is the OTA. They have their own NBN installation. It's still part of the overall 5G NBN, but there are physically separated network elements for them. So the NBN is deployed dedicated to them. Whereas the OTs B, C, and D, they share the same NBN installation, and their networks are logically separated from each other. There are many ways in the technology available for this kind of logical separation. We have talked about network slicing, for example. That's one way, and that's probably something that would take place for these OTs B, C, and D in this example. Another way is to create virtual networks, and that case we highlight here with the example on the right side of this slide. And it's more of a machine level network figure. So with these different colored lines, you see different virtual networks that are separated from each other. They're all still part of the same NBN. So this is just to highlight that you need to consider the level of separation between the different parts of the network and perhaps different parts of the whether you're doing the NBN on your own or perhaps with the public operator. So whatever fits you, the solutions are available, and we can do this separation in a way that the enterprises, for example, in this industrial park scenario, do not see the traffic of others. They don't even feel the traffic of each other. So that can be achieved. The other aspect that's very interesting, and I was already alluding to, is this public network integrated NBN, and how does that fit into the picture and operation with the public network operator. Because the basic scenario would be, as I showed a few slides earlier, a fully dedicated NBN that's not in relation to the public network at all. However, in some situations, working with the public network operator can also be very beneficial and even necessary, so you need to do that. And one of these examples is the case of spectrum availability. So in some regions, spectrum, so the frequencies for the private network are only available from the public network. And the other example, of course, is this public network integrated NBN. And actually what the figure shows here is this spectrum, RAN sharing scenario, where the RAN deployment is done together with the public network to share the load in the investment, for example, in the case of very large process automation plant. Very large, I mean in the physical area. And the last aspect in this considerations to do is this connectivity to external networks. Okay, in any industrial plant of today, some of the machines they are connected to some external networks for maintenance purposes, for example, and some of those could be using 5G connectivity, and the 5G connectivity happens inside the factory, and then these external connections are handled in the same way as with wires. So that's not really the scenario that we are looking into here. What we want to raise here is the connectivity to external networks related to network management. So that is a scenario that may become valid in some of these solutions. So obviously, again, if the industrial enterprise decides to deploy the NBN on their own and manage it on their own, there is no external connectivity needed to other network. But private network can also be obtained as a service, and in that case it would be partly operated by the service provider and partly by the enterprise. So this scenario would apply if the it would apply both for this standalone NBN, where all the network nodes are deployed on the side and owned by the industrial enterprise, but the as-a-service part may relate to this network management. And of course, this also applies to, again, to the public network integrated NBN case. Let me highlight that what's important in these scenarios is that in all of these cases, the industrial enterprise can still have all the controls that they need to operate the NBN as required, as spun from their industrial operation. So they could add devices, they could do changes in the network configuration. So there could be these two levels of management involved. And the benefit of doing this, of course, is that the deep, detailed management of the 5G system would then be handled by the service provider, and the industrial enterprise can focus on those management aspects that are relevant for their daily operation and without worrying about the 5G details, so to say. Okay, well, this was very brief presentation of the white paper contents. As said, it will be available, or it is available on the website and as a hard copy. And we will have the web seminar coming on it in the fall. At this point, I would also like to mention that 5G ACIA is organizing a workshop for ports and mining segments in the fall, and could be interesting workshop also for any other new member companies who are interested in 5G ACIA. One way or the other, please join us either at the 5G ACIA booth right over there or at the Nokia booth behind me, 50 meters behind me. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Atte. One question concerning the workshop. Where will it be? It's a physical workshop?
Physical workshop in Frankfurt.
In Frankfurt?
Yes.
So, and you can find the exact date and time on the 5G Asia website?
It will be announced next week, the latest.
Okay, perfect. Are there any questions from the audience for Latte? Maybe we have some time left for some understanding question, and one question I would like to ask you. First, the understanding question. You said that the examples you showed are all local based. I did not really get the meaning of what the difference is. Is it not possible to compare or to transfer the findings from the white paper to other worldwide industry areas, or what is it just, when you mean local, is it just a German or a European local based? Could you please clarify that point?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for asking that. The only thing we mean with local is that it's for a factory site. It's not about the location on the globe.
For one factory site. So when let's say BASF is facilitating a lot of industry sites, and they want to produce the same product, let's say, in Germany and in Asia.
Yes.
So, and that would be that they have the problem when they have a solution in Germany, they want to transfer it one-to-one to Asia.
Yes, everything that is here applies to that. So they would have several different local installations of the NBN.
Okay.
So we just mean that we are not talking about an NBN that would cover very large areas, such as a full country. So we're talking about campus networks.
Yeah.
Not wide area networks.
No, I got it. Yes. So you mean with local the area? So it's a limited area.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now I got it. Sorry for being a bit late, but you are the first presenter this morning, so maybe I have to catch up a bit.
No worries.
You had a lot of different use cases. I would like to get an understanding which of these is the most complex. So you buried yourself and your colleagues in the working group buried yourself very deep into these use cases. Give us please an idea which example is most complex, and you would like to say, oh yeah, you gather a big project group to get it to life, and which one is very easy, where you say it's a use case which doesn't has so much demands which we can set up very easily. Can you give us a range or something?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. That's a good question as well. So when we look at these this technology that we are using for campus networks or private networks, it's one which we have been using for mobile networks for decades. So those use cases that are related to handheld devices and require similar quality of service as those, they are very easily handled by these private networks as well. What comes more difficult are these use cases that really require low latencies and high reliability, because then you have to build additional guarantees to the networks to make that happen. And actually in the work that we did not have any use cases that would really require ultra low latencies or ultra high reliabilities. So everything that we have shown is very much feasible and possible and not too demanding, to be honest.
And when the visitor says, okay, I want to go my first step, is a white paper one of the first steps, or is it a step when you are a bit more sophisticated in what you want to do?
That's an excellent question as well. So this white paper actually would be one of the first steps.
Okay.
So we're not fine-tuning the almost professionals. This is a very simple, easy to approach document.
Okay, perfect. One last question. You were talking about the domain separation, and I did not get the reason or the benefit of it. Is it because of cybersecurity to separate the domains, or is it because of functionality questions?
I think it's both security and functionality, and it really comes from the way that these industrial networks are designed today. And it's a practice that has been used for decades, and it's been proven to be a good way to do it.
So it's the first step that you do not have interferences, and but maybe a side effect that it's cyber secure as well.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
So indeed, in case there is something in one domain, it doesn't proliferate to other domains.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much, Atte. Thank you for answering my additional questions.
Sure.
Yeah. And a round of applause for Atte. And
Thank you.
we will see you later at the booth of 5G Asia to have the one or the other private question.